Welcome to Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. And Bubba, today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite places in the whole world, South Africa. And we're gonna meet for you some new friends. That Andrew and Melanie. And Melanie, you are here, and Melanie's trying to teach us how to say the last name.
I know the southern.
Is it Mokgatla?
Mokgatla.
Mokgatla. Mokgatla. Mokgatla. Nice to meet you. I'm Mokgatla.
There you go.
Yeah. So we wanted to we got an opportunity because you guys are here in the States right now, and this is that time of year across our country that a lot of churches take time, rightfully so, to refresh those that are serving all over the world. So Melanie, obviously, you come right out of our home city of Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah, I'm originally from Atlanta.
So you Atlanta did you come to Birmingham to work at the church in Birmingham? Samford University.
From Hot Atlanta.
Yeah, that's
right.
Mokgatla from Hot Atlanta.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was a Samford student, studied graphic design and fine art. Which is key to our history together, my husband and I, which we'll tell you later. But yeah, loved my experience and interned at Shades Mountain Baptist Church.
Yep.
And 6 months before I graduated, someone called me and said, "Don't you want to come on staff at Shades?" And I thought, I'm about to give up my entire Samford degree to be in ministry. Got really upset about that with the Lord. And but yeah, started following the next right step, and that's where it led me.
Can I ask you about that? And Bubba, people have even asked us about this before, and I've heard you talk about it from a peace standpoint. But when you said you knew the Lord was calling you to something that wasn't even really your plan, I know it's hard to explain. Can you as best you can explain what you mean by I knew that the Lord was what was that like spiritually to know that you were being called to it?
Yeah, interning in the youth ministry, I just found such passion and peace, like you said, but it was like it hit a niche that I had never found that peace before.
Yeah.
And so when I practiced youth ministry, when I was with the students, when I was studying to teach, it just felt right. It felt like this was the next step. I had dreams of being a graphic designer in New York. I had sent my resumes out. And then when this opportunity came, it's just like you go, okay, all right, I'll trust you. And we'll figure it out. And, I don't think a decision that you make with your career or your lifestyle is a forever. And so if you look at it as, I'm going to trust Lord in this season, this step, and let's see what happens next.
Yeah, see how it goes.
Yeah. So you serve there, and then you think that's a big decision.
Exactly.
To decide to
Samford to Shades Mountain,
from Samford.
which is what, maybe 2 miles.
Yeah, exactly. Up a hill.
Yeah. And then you fell in love with South Africa, but what was the process of God calling you to South Africa long term, not just short term?
Yeah. So part of my job at Shades Mountain with the youth was to lead international mission trips for the youth. So I had been all around the world in even really hard places, secure places. And we took a site visit to South Africa to see if it was a place that our church wanted to invest more in. And when I went, something was different. And I can't even tell you what it was. Yeah. But when I came back, the way I spent my money was different. The way I prayed was different. The way I saw the world was different. And like I said, it wasn't the poverty. It wasn't the specific area. Oh, my gosh, Cape Town is so beautiful, right, Rick? I mean,
oh, man.
it is the most beautiful place in the world.
Nothing. You can't say South Africa looks like this.
No.
It has no equal.
Right.
It has its own look, and there's certain things God did there you only see there.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget, side note, when Sherry was there with me, we were standing in a township, and I remember Sherry looking at the shacks, and then literally we turned 180, and you're looking at the most beautiful mountain that you've ever seen. And she said, "Melanie, I can't think that this is an accident, that in such poverty and such hardship, that all you have to do is look to something that God created. Look at that mountain and know that He is God."
Yeah, I think the statement for me that when I was there that just blew my mind was that the beach was not, by our standards, far away at all.
Maybe 2 miles.
And we're talking to children that said they'd never seen it,
Exactly. Yep.
that live in South Africa.
Yep.
And I was like, so you've never been to the beach?
Right.
You've never seen that part of your country?
Right.
And for them, I might as well be saying that I desire to see something that was on the other side of the country.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And but that the contrast there was mind blowing.
Yep. Yeah.
So when did you know that God says, this is where you're going to start your new life and new ministry for me?
So it was quite a journey. I don't want people to think that, you just wake up one day and say, I'm packing a bag.
Yeah.
But when I came back, I met with some deacons at church and said, this is really what I'm feeling. I'm feeling a pull. I'm feeling a call. I had sat through multiple conferences, mission conferences, and asked myself, is this for me? I think sometimes when we sit in a missions conference, we sit in a sermon, we get all rah about, yes, those people that are going, we are going to support them, whatever. But there was one time that something just clicked and I felt God was saying, actually, I'm trying to speak to you. This isn't for others. This is for you. And I think that prayer and that realization to say, okay, Lord, what do you want to say? And my openness to that. So when I came back, like I said, I walked with some deacon couples. I remember sitting at dining room tables and discussing, okay, what practically would this look like? What does this look like? What would you be giving up? What do you need to do? And it was probably a 2-year process. Then you start fundraising, you start seeing on the field, where are you going to live? Who are you going to work with? And you don't just go. You've got to have a purpose. So, I had some great people on the field that were leading and guiding me, and packed my bag, sold my house, sold my car.
What did that feel like?
Oh my gosh, I'll never forget.
The famous you've heard, burn the boats. We're
hearing that a lot lately.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but which means I'm committed. I mean, I'm not just wondering anymore. I'm not soul searching. I'm the details I don't know yet, but where I'm going, I already know.
Right.
But then you see those things, you go, and that's it. I just there goes my car.
Yep. You know what was so funny is because when people find out, people will say to you, oh, well, then can I buy your car? Oh, well, that couch would, and I just felt like people were after my stuff. But it was freeing to go, okay, well, the Lord will provide somewhere for these people to go, and I can use that for fundraising. But I'll never forget, someone offered their home to do a good old-fashioned Southern yard sale, and I put literally everything I own. You know how you collect coffee mugs? I had 1,500 coffee mugs there. You know how it just stacks up.
We just went through a move. We got you.
Oh, my gosh. And so just watching those things go one by one, I remember crying at the yard sale just going, this is bigger. This isn't an accident.
So it didn't feel freeing?
At the end, yes.
Not at the beginning?
Not at the end, because, we're in America. We collect our things.
Understood.
We like the comfort and the security of our things.
Our stuff.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of it, as you found out.
Yep.
So we all know this. When you make a move like that, I'm just assuming.
Yeah.
And I love short-term mission trips, and I'm not in the school of people who try to speak against them as if rolling their eyes. I think short-term mission trips, are important. They do matter. They do work. And you always hear, well, it'll impact you more than the people you impacted. Well, that may be, but that's still a good thing.
Of course.
Yeah, and we don't want to have we want to find out how we can help long term, even if you can only go short time.
Exactly.
I got all that.
Yep.
But I don't think I can know what it's like to live in South Africa until I live in South Africa.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as it every time you'd been there before, you knew what time your flight was, what day your flight was, and when you would go back. And now there is no return flight.
Right.
This is where God's got you living full time for whatever time He decides.
Yes.
Maybe for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Was there a moment when that felt different than any short term trip you'd ever been on or hosted?
Yeah, definitely. I'll talk about my family.
I was going to ask
you,
how did your family and close friends take this revelation?
Yeah. So my mom passed away when I was young, but she is the one that led me to the Lord. And so her faith and watching her go through some really hard things stuck with me. But my dad was like, I'll support you. This is great. He was just really strong in that and never really questioned. And I think it was a generation where he didn't get to travel the world. So if I had the opportunity, he was like, yeah, go for it. But now my grandparents, on the other hand, that older generation, thought I was going to Mars. They cannot even imagine moving a life across the world.
Right.
And it was very difficult. And later in our story, we've got some family divides as well. But it was difficult, really difficult. And I remember the scripture. I can't remember the reference right now, but that those that leave their father and mother will get their reward in full. And I remember also the scripture of let the dead bury the dead and come and follow me. And that just really spoke to me that was one of my excuses, that I needed to stay behind. I'm an only child. My mom was an only child.
Right.
I need to take care of this family. But someone just really challenged me. God will take care of them. You just need to do what you've got to do. So it was hard, but it was also, I knew the direction I was supposed to go.
Well, you and I talked about it, and then we'll come back and unpack it. And I was talking about even sometimes the small moves in life, but even the big ones. There are certainly times that we are not in God's will, and it's something that we want to do, and what we're doing is the wrong thing to do. To go is wrong.
Sure.
But then there's the other end, and I think the one that sometimes we ignore. Sometimes you are in sin when you don't go.
Right.
Omission.
When so and Sherry and I, nothing near as dramatic, but we changed churches and we didn't move from a new city of the church we've been at for 20 years and raised our kids in. But and we certainly couldn't be accused of being church hoppers.
Right.
But and Sherry and I said I think we're to the point now where we are wrong to stay. As at one time, it would have been wrong to go.
Right. I think the older I get, the more I'm convicted of the sin of familiarity.
Yeah.
And being content when you really should challenge yourself. So I think that's where.
Yeah, and you probably found out on a very large scale, sometimes, and I'm admitting this, on the small thing I'm talking about, here, everything pretty much gets done, and I can participate if I want to.
Right.
But even in this move we've had, now it's like, thank y'all for being here. We got a lot for y'all to do.
Right.
Right.
And
what you're
everybody's got a role.
Where you're going now, you will not blend in and just kind of be part of what's going on. So we'll talk about that when we come back, when Rick and Bubba University, the podcast, continues. All right, so let's talk a little bit, Bubba, about one of our favorite topics, and of course that is food. And now, I don't know if you are familiar with Moink. Moink, but I will tell you this, Moink delivers grass-fed, grass-finished beef and lamb, pasteurized pork and chicken, sustainable wild-caught Alaskan salmon, and they bring it straight to your door.
I'm getting hungry.
Did you know that 60% of our pork production comes from one company owned by the Chinese? Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. So their hogs are, given who knows what, which has even been banned from 160 countries, including China, yet you'll find it on the grocery aisle here. That kind of goes back to what we just went through with the pandemic a little bit. If somebody moves something and bans it, we probably don't want to take it.
Yeah, we need to be a little more mindful of that maybe.
But then you say, well, then what are my choices? Well, here's one. Why don't you go to Moink, Moink box.com, and then you put in /Rick Bubba. So if you do that right now, we're going to get you free filet mignon for a year. One of the best filet mignon you've ever tasted, and we'll give you this filet mignon for 1 year that you never have to buy another one. So go make that move right now. Go to Moink, Moink box.com /Rick Bubba and take advantage of that deal and make the move now. Did you remember when they were on Shark Tank?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
We saw the
clip. They're as soon as they got on Shark Tank and they tried the pork, they said this is the best bacon that I've ever eaten in my life, and it'll be that way for you too. So make the move now. Moink, Moink box.com /Rick Bubba, free filet mignon for 1 year. Back on Rick and Bubba University, the podcast, and today we are spending some time for me with some old friends. Bubba's meeting them for the first time. I've known Melanie for a number of years. I've just met Andrew, your husband, in person for the first time, and we're talking about Melanie answering the call to go to South Africa to live there and to work for the kingdom of God full time. So you're there. And so when you got the opportunity to start working, I guess because of our time, we need to get Andrew in here real quick.
Yeah.
So
You're going to want to hear that South African accent, too.
Yeah, I do. I always enjoy it. So how did you two meet? How did this take place?
Yeah. You want me to start?
You can start. I think the ladies are telling the stories better when it comes to this kind of love thing.
The love thing.
Yeah.
So one of my roles in the township that I worked in was to teach art. So how about my graphic design degree?
There you go.
Making a 360.
There you go.
And so a teacher that was working with me ended up going to the school that Andrew was teaching at.
Mm-hmm.
And she called me one day and said, Melanie, I think I found him. How about that?
Really?
Yeah.
Yes. So she said, can I give him your number? And I said, sure, yeah, whatever, thinking nothing's going to come of it. And so.
And this is where the story gets interesting because I just moved in from another city to Cape Town.
Yeah.
Wasn't looking for anything, and I'm here for work, and I need to focus, and I need to get myself familiar with the city. So I didn't have a car to travel with at the time, so this lady gave me a lift. So every morning she told me about her, and you gotta see her. She's amazing. Come on now. And I was saying, hang on a minute. I gotta focus on other things right now. So
how many times have we said that?
Eventually I caved in, and here we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you finally met each other in person,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
how long did it take before you said there's something here? Andrew, you first.
I think I'm guilty of this. Before I moved into anything, I always do my research.
Oh, yes.
Now be careful.
Forgot about this
She's sitting
part.
right here, Andrew. Okay?
I forgot about this part. Yes.
I did not hire IRS, I promise, or anybody like that, or FBI agent.
Yes.
Anyway,
Right.
I just did an old Google thing, Facebook thing.
He Googled
and,
me. Yeah.
He Googled you.
And then the face got me. She was the most beautiful person.
And now he gets back in good graces. Really.
Yeah.
Oh, that was real good graces. Yes.
Yeah, the face made it easy, and as soon as we sat down, the conversation just flew, and her love for people just got me.
Oh, yeah.
She just loves people from a very special place, so that really got me.
Yeah, you're not the first person to notice that.
I'm sure, yeah.
So what about with you?
Yeah. Ironically, one of my friends called me after that date, the first date, and they said, on scale 1 to 10, what'd you think? And I said, a 7. And they were like blown up. A 7? Wow, that's great. And I went, well, maybe a 5. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. No, he was charming. I mean, look at those muscles.
Yeah.
Can YouTube see these muscles?
No.
Yeah, so I was a little bit smitten, but cautious because of our backgrounds and not necessarily the race issue, but just our backgrounds. We grew up very different. So we took it slow. I'd probably say 3 months. After 3 months, I knew, we should do this.
Well, you're right. I mean, just being from one country and another country.
Exactly.
But have you found that to actually be something that has been an asset more than a detriment? The fact that you're learning so many new things from each other?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an asset for me in another country. I mean, I live in his country.
Yeah.
And so he's my guide, and he shows me the other side that I wouldn't necessarily get to see, learn things that I wouldn't necessarily get to learn. Yeah.
So Andrew, was there any caution at all about someone from America making her your wife because maybe that the cultures have been so much differently?
I wasn't necessarily worried about the differences in countries, because for me it was like I was more about the love.
Yeah,
I found somebody that I want to journey with, somebody who understands me, and we got somewhere to go.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, but
it does. It does.
Yeah.
So you were saying there were things that were so strong, and you thought no matter what we have ahead, because of this connection and how much that you felt for her, it would be overcome. And probably, yes. I mean, you guys have been married how long now?
Almost 5 years.
5 years.
Not long.
Yeah, almost 5 years.
And you have a little boy that's almost 3?
3 years.
Yes, yeah.
So what is his name?
His name is Te Rumetsui Mokgatla.
Yeah. So
see how cool
We're
that
not
is?
going to try that one.
Te means I have been seen,
Yes.
and Rumetsui means I have been sent.
Yes.
So spiritually,
Give me a chill.
were y'all on the same page
Yeah,
when
that's
it all started? Was that one of the common threads?
That's what I was going to say. On paper, we look perfect for each other.
Yeah.
Our love for art, our teaching backgrounds, even just things that we like to do. We love to be in nature, and I could go on and on. But it's our cultural background, and that's what gets it. I think I definitely had more experience inside the church from the staff side than Andrew did. But we talked about that, and Andrew, on one of our dates, he says, "You're not looking for a pastor, are you?"
Right.
I'm not that kind of guy, but he's like, he's like that behind the scenes. I'm going to support you and the church, and I'm going to pack the chairs, and I will meet one-on-one with
servant's heart.
people. Oh, such a servant's heart.
Yeah.
I think we complemented each other that way as well.
Yeah.
Well, and to me, that is a leadership quality that Christ emulated beautifully in those who have it. Man,
It's hard to teach.
Well, here's the thing: we in the church a lot of times we get burned by some of the other gift sets because they're so difficult to handle. I can honestly say, and I'm not trying to overstep here, the people I know within the church that have that servant's heart that is so much like Christ, you rarely. I can't think of any. I'm just trying to be fair and say it can't be 100%.
Yeah.
But it seems if that part of the faith is correct, you never get burned by them.
Yeah.
You never really see a fall away. You never see a compromising situation I'm just thinking about it. Because we all so many times we usually see some of the gift sets because there's ego, there's pride, there's celebrity sometimes that comes with it, and that seems to be a harder thing for people to handle. But if they get this part right, the washing of the feet right,
Yep.
And those people usually are really trustworthy.
Yeah, and it doesn't get a lot of airtime.
No, it doesn't.
It's very unseen, and even an introvert with that quality, it's like, you only celebrate the loud gifts.
Right.
And I think that's been a struggle for us because I've got the loud gifts and the loud voice.
That's a good way to put it. The loud gift.
Yeah.
I can relate.
Yeah. But it's also hard because sometimes we need to elevate those that are serving quietly. Yeah.
But you know what? That's another thing that I think is wonderful. They never ask for that, and I don't think they expect it or desire it.
Yeah.
Or need it.
Right.
But it doesn't mean we still shouldn't do it.
Exactly.
So now let's talk about what you guys actually do.
Okay.
So tell us about because you and I, Melanie, were talking about this, and I learned it when I was there. Of course, Andrew, you've lived it. You know that.
Yes.
I think sometimes we forget how new some things are to South Africa.
Right.
Apartheid. That was in the 90s.
94 was our democracy. But started long before that.
Yeah, but I'm talking about as far as it ending.
Yes,
a democracy. When we finally you got out from under that rule and became a democracy. 94 is yesterday in world history.
Yep.
And it's a country that I noticed and was educated on when I was there that still hasn't seemed to quite figure out who they are.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
That's accurate. The apartheid started in 1945 on paper, and the police started obviously getting their orders to do what they're supposed to be doing, and
forced removals and separating the races.
Yeah.
And after 94, everybody was so excited. There was this feeling that you get after the conference, like everything's going to be so great, we're going to go in.
Right.
But when it came to changing laws, there was a lot of resistance. When it came to, sharing the land itself, there still is a lot of resistance, and poverty is still stricken because of lack of employment. I can go on all day.
Yeah, when you think about 1945 to 1994, and now you're thinking about 1994 to 2022,
Right.
It's not a long time.
It's not a long time. And do you still see that? Has there been? Certainly there's been some progress, right?
Yeah, I think we're getting there, but the cycles that continue because of the just hierarchy and opportunities. If you say on paper, yes, everyone is equal, they can make it, but if your starting line is much farther back, you've got a long way to run. So whether it's the same person out for a job, well, one person has a car, one has to take five modes of transportation to get to the same job. They're exhausted when they get there.
Sure.
They started traveling a lot sooner than the other one. One may have access to a lunch, one may not. One may have to really save for a proper pair of shoes so that you look presentable for this job. The other has 10 pairs of shoes in their closet.
And I wanted to make that point. I don't mean to interrupt you,
Yeah.
and we talked about this, Bubba, if you remember. One of the things that was so, and pardon the use of this word, but it really was, schizophrenic about South Africa is you're going shanty village here,
Yep.
turn around, and
Yep.
you see some of the biggest, nicest houses
Yep.
you've ever seen in your
Yep.
life anywhere in the world.
Yep.
Is that still the case? Has the middle class made any progress?
So this is where it gets complicated.
Yeah.
Now, if you go to Cape Town, you do find the mansion, street, and then you find a shack. Go to
Right.
Johannesburg, more or less the same thing because it's a smaller province. But if you go to other provinces,
Okay.
like Free State, which is in the center of the country, you go from one township, you take a bus, 50K out, then you get to the city.
Well, okay.
So that's where the
More
dynamic.
separation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So spatial apartheid is still
Yes,
exists
still in place.
because families still inherit that land. So the land issue in South Africa is crazy right now.
How do you fix that, though? Because
Yeah.
what some people would consider fixing, other people are saying it's just reverse discrimination.
Totally.
And that only breeds racial divide.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you ever, the fix to me is also watering hatred for the next generation.
Right.
How do you solve that?
So one of the ways that I've seen recently that our government and our society has tried to fix that is new distribution of land. So let's say, Rick, your family, because you're white, you get put in this really nice area of town. You get this beautiful plot. And the next person of color gets somewhere way out in the country. Some people are trying to fight for that land that they were removed from. But now your family would be homeless if you were to give back that land.
to Bubba's
so forth.
point. Yeah.
Yes. So I have seen recently that about a hour and a half's drives outside of Cape Town, they're trying to renew some farmland and give those that were displaced new property for a cheap price. But here is my hardship about that.
Who gets that?
So
the
those
original
that were
owners or the recent owners? Who's moving out to the new property?
those that were displaced.
Initially?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
The
those of
original-
color.
Yeah.
Okay.
The original
Yeah.
people.
But that still perpetuates spatial apartheid because those that you're giving land to, it's the same race, the same culture, and now you're still dividing.
Yeah.
You know, the cultures aren't mixing. Now, some people like that. They're like, this is my village. These are my people. This is where
Sure.
I want to be. And so it is a multi-layered conversation.
All right, let's come back and we'll continue with this because I want to talk about what you guys are doing with your
Yeah.
ministry
Thank you.
when we come back on Rick Bubba University, the podcast. All right, so let's talk about using cell service. A lot of times people say, and you see this all the time, you see companies and you go, I don't have any choice. I don't like what they stand for. I don't like the things that they do. It doesn't line up with my belief system.
Wish you had an option.
But I don't have. But you do now with your cell service, and that's why we want you to know about Patriot Mobile. It's America's only Christian conservative cell phone provider, and they offer broad nationwide coverage. In fact, they use the same towers as the major carriers, so you get the same great nationwide coverage plus the peace of mind that your money is supporting your right to free speech. So Patriot Mobile has plans to fit any budget, and they are 100% U.S.-based customer support team providing exceptional customer service. And if you think you're compromising your principles, but you need cell service, you don't have to. Maybe patriotmobile.com/Rick Bubba lines up more with what you believe, and they give you great service. Call them right now, 972-PATRIOT or patriotmobile.com/Rick Bubba. Get free activation with the offer code Rick Bubba. And veterans and first responders save even more money if you switch today. So go right now to patriotmobile.com/Rick Bubba or call 972-PATRIOT. So back on Rick and Bubba University, the podcast, and the conversation we're having now is with Melanie and Andrew Mokgatla.
Mokgatla.
Mokgatla. All right, so we've talked about the state of South Africa. Tell us about your ministry and what you guys are trying to do.
So before I met Andrew, I had been in South Africa about 7 years and worked in, townships all over. I figured out that young adults were leaving the church, and I wanted to know why.
Mm-hmm.
So the youth ministries were vast and exciting, but then something happened right after youth. So a friend of mine, a local, she was in seminary. Do you remember Megan? I know you remember.
Oh, yes,
Megan.
absolutely. I remember Megan because she had such a thick accent.
Yes.
We want to pray for the Burgesses.
There we go.
Yeah.
And I think
Now,
I
where
remember.
was she from?
She was, let's see, I don't know.
Sounded German.
Yeah, well, it was very thick. The Burgesses.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget one of your children and Megan sitting in the trunk of a car.
Yeah.
Beating drums to gather a crowd for something.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah,
anyway.
I do. Fantastic.
So Megan was in seminary, and one of her final thesis paper was about that. Why are youth leaving the church, young adults leaving the church? And she came up with a solution, a theory. So we started writing a curriculum around that, and that was her final thesis, was the strategy for mentoring. And if one person in a local church that was one step older than you could lead someone else, you could have a great success. Mm-hmm. We were seeing that a lot of youth, their parents didn't finish high school, so the parents didn't know how to encourage them or the next steps to finish high school. Same for the next generation. If they finished high school, that was it. That was great. That was success. But how do you get to the next step? What if you wanted to study further? What if you wanted to go into a career? And so really it was about education at first. But then all the spiritual things came alongside that. So our strategy, it's called Grow Ministry, and it's based off of Luke 2:52. Jesus grew in wisdom, stature, and favor with God and man. And so that's how Jesus grew on earth, and we want to model that. So we support growth in wisdom, health, and relationships. So every term, our school term is in 4. We try to offer our leaders opportunities in that. So Andrew runs something similar to the Mud Run. It's called IMPI in South Africa. And so they do like this obstacle course and race. So we challenge everybody to, do a couch to 5K or do an IMPI run or, work towards health goals. We also want you to be learning and educating yourself in wisdom, whether that's spiritual, educational, whatever. And then in relationships, we want to make sure our interpersonal relationships are great with our family, with our friends, with our community, but also vertically our spiritual relationships. So that's the strategy. And our mentors are trained. We've got 2 pieces of curriculum. We've got a mentors training. We've also got a workbook that mentors would go through with their mentee. It's a year process. And that's what we do. Andrew is in charge of the guys. I don't know if you want to talk about some of that.
Well, we know this, Andrew. Now you're going to get me stirred up in here. But as the men go,
Yes.
so goes everything.
Yes.
And every time you find problems like this, you find that the men have left their responsibilities most of the time because they're not under the authority of Christ. And though women have stepped up and done incredible things, just as I would say, you can't remove women from society either. If the men go, there's a gap that's left that only they can fill.
Yeah.
And men's influence either is bad or good, that you can't just turn it off.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like this is another way for men to mentor other men to change from the top down.
Yes. One of the things, because my background is high school teaching. I used to be a high school teacher. So basically when you're a teacher, you kind of like become a pastor, you become a doctor, you become all of them. So as I was coming towards the choice where I needed to join her in the ministry and leave my my job, which I did that very easily. There was some few guys that I realized they relied more on me during the school hours. It's more like a father figure, so to speak.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
So when I was leaving towards the ministry and going for that, and I realized that they actually are not going to have anybody.
Right.
So as we were talking, because she was mostly guiding the ladies in ministry and all of that, and I said, hang on, there are a few guys that I know that I've been journeying this life with, and I'd like to go back. and just go and see how they're doing, and then maybe incorporate them with what we're doing, and hopefully not solve the problem, but hopefully grow from there.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
Of course, the books, like she mentioned, is spiritual, is physical, and so on. We mentor them in all those regards. We find out exactly where they are with their spiritual life. We incorporate that. We find out where they are with their physical life. We incorporate that, etc. Yeah.
And the curriculum that we've developed, it's nothing in this book says anything about Christ, because we want it to be a neutral source where the mentor is the one that brings the spiritual guidance.
Earns the right to do that.
Definitely. But schools, nonprofits, other than church-related ministries use this book. I'm really excited about that. We also run an art business. So with our love for art, we have an art business called Grow Creative Solutions, and that is our kind of strategy for long-term longevity of our ministry.
How you fund it.
Yeah, how you fund it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the profits of that, let's just say COVID about killed us. Art
Lot-
is a luxury, and, food and housing was number one in South Africa. But anyway, Grow Creative Solutions. Andrew is an amazing portrait painter. You know what is really popular right now is dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Dog portraits.
Oh, yeah.
He's like known for his dog portraits now. Anyway, so that's what he does, and he mentors alongside. So the studio would be open, and guys can come in after school as a safe place to either study or study under Andrew. And so that's part of it. And then we use art as a tool to get into places we wouldn't normally get into. Lots of people would love team building or stress relief workshops or learn a new skill. And so through that, then we're able to bring the gospel in lots of places.
How is the overall feeling in South Africa toward the gospel? Is it a good environment? Is it a good place that has a lot of opportunities? Is there hostility? What is the general mood?
Good question.
So one of the townships that actually Megan was from, Ocean View, is known for how many churches there are. So there are so many splits that people just start home churches. And so lots of people would say that they're believers, but there's a lot of factions and a lot of mistrust in some of the denominations. There's a very large Muslim population, and so that's also a factor. But I think culturally, people would say they're Christians. There's a lot of prosperity gospel, a lot of just cultural practices that wouldn't be,
And you're
Bible
familiar with
believing.
that. I think that is
Totally.
helpful, Bubba, because you come from a place that is, I hate to say it,
similar.
I
that
was
is
gonna
similar
say, it sounds very
with
similar.
cultural Christianity in the
Right.
Bible Belt is a pastor recently wrote a book, and we did it and walked through it, called The Unsaved Christian. And it says, I think in America, one of the biggest unreached people groups are cultural Christians.
Yeah.
But that's something you have to be careful with, and it's difficult because they're thinking, I believe everything you say.
Yep.
But then you try to look into the life and say, well, where's the fruit
Right.
of Christ in your life? And that gets into more difficult conversations
Which is why we choose wisdom, health, and relationships as our focus.
to get in.
And really evaluate and investigate the depth of that.
All right, let's come back. We'll continue and wrap things up with Melanie and Andrew when the Rick and Bubba University, the podcast, continues.
This is the Rick and Bubba Show. Watch more at blazetv.com/Rick and Bubba.
Rick and Bubba, Rick and Bubba.
All right, so we're back on Rick and Bubba University, the podcast, and we've been talking about South Africa. I do want to be sure we get this in, though, because you've talked about all the things you guys do.
Yeah.
But the children's book.
Yes.
So this children's book is What Do You See? A tool for having conversations about with your child about complicated justice issues. And I'm looking through it. I mean, honestly, I see things like, what do you do when someone's begging?
Yep.
Because all these different approaches of things that children need to know that they encounter. And so tell us what it hopes.
Yeah, share one or two of
Yeah,
those.
what we're hoping to accomplish here.
Yeah. So the backstory of this is I just wanted to have conversations with my child to build language skills. So before he even could speak, he would be in the back seat in a car seat, and I would just be having conversations with him. Tay, what do you see? You know, oh, look at that mountain. Look, God made that mountain. Or, gosh, look at those flowers. God must be an artist. You know, look how beautiful that is.
Yeah, no doubt. A really good one.
Yeah. So one day we were driving, and a beggar, which is very common in South Africa, came up to our window and was in the backseat window side of Tay with a cup. And Tay says, "I see a man with a cup."
Mm-hmm.
And it was just kind of shook me to the core, not because the man was standing there, but because I realized my 2-year-old is now facing really complicated justice issues. And we need to talk about them now, not when I feel like they're going to understand the depths of the matter, but now. So this book may not be anything new to most people, but it's a tool that you can sit with your child and know how to start those conversations. So we cover creation care, which is a lot about recycling and just, you know, God gave us the earth, diversity, homelessness, food insecurity, unemployment, and of course in South Africa, spatial apartheid. But I also think that's very relevant here, through division of economics and housing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so this is a little book that we just produced.
And so when all your information, you know, we'll make it available
Yeah.
and we'll let you know, so I can get that at y'all's website and everything.
Definitely. GrowCreativeSolutions.com. Go to our shop and the book is there.
We have only about 5 minutes, and I'm about to ask a question that's not a 5-minute answer.
Oh, no.
but maybe you can. There's an assumption, especially those of us that came from the South, that with you two being a biracial couple,
Yeah.
okay, that, well, in Africa, man, everybody's fine with that. That's a Southern American problem. When I can see, praise God, that the South has made huge strides.
Right.
I mean, I know couples that are biracial.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying they never face any issues at all, but it's nothing like it once was. And
Yeah.
what about in Africa when you think about apartheid and you think about here you are?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not just kind of white. Okay, yeah.
Very fair,
Right.
redheaded.
Yeah,
Yes.
and of course the British have been there, and of course the Dutch have been there.
Yep.
So there's some negative connotations
Definitely.
with being white,
Definitely.
and then of course there's negative connotations of being black.
Yeah.
So do you think has it been difficult being a biracial couple in South Africa?
I'd say yes and no. It's probably easier for me than it is for Andrew.
Okay.
Andrew's experience of where we live in kind of a middle class area. He has security guards still follow him, even though he has the key and the alarm.
Yeah.
This is his home, and so there's always a suspicion, and it is difficult. Andrew sees it more than I do as well. I think my perspective of life and even my experience in America is we're all equal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're all equal. And so I'm going to treat everybody equal, but not everybody has that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, Andrew gets a little more brunt of it.
Are you getting where you don't see these things through the eyes of an American as much now?
Oh, yeah, I see it as a South African, definitely. Yeah.
And it is a different, because we think everybody's government's set up like ours.
Nope.
We think there's a constitution. We
Nope.
think and
Yeah.
we just we go around the world thinking that we take our constitution with us everywhere we go.
Right.
But you know what you're saying is there's no reference back to a constitution that says we don't do this or that says you have this right. All that's still ongoing. Is that a better word? Trying to develop what kind of country you're going to be.
Yeah, what makes South Africa complicated? Because if you come to America, obviously you're going to speak English.
Right.
It's just the standard. But we have 11 official languages. That's 11 groups of cultures. So men being men, we lead in cultures. So as soon as I go and marry a beautiful Melanie from another culture, country, and so on, my culture sees that as a loss.
I see.
Betrayal, maybe.
I see.
Sell out.
Yeah.
I see.
That's a heavy word, but it's a true
Yeah.
word.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what are you doing? So
we get called that a lot in different topics.
Yes.
nothing
No.
uncommon.
I mean,
Yeah.
that you've left your culture now. You're not.
Yeah.
You know, you're compromised our culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
On the reverse, my grandparents disowned me. They basically said, we don't want to see you. We don't come to our property. And it's been really difficult.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I didn't
That's
know that.
severe. huh?
both sides. Yeah.
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 Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's
Yeah, Andrew's family welcomed me with open arms, but I think on the side, correct me if I'm wrong, they were like, do you know what you're doing? That's fine. We love her, but do you know what you're doing? Yeah.
No, my family is all good.
Yes, yes.
Well,
They're just happy with anything that I choose or whatnot.
They're very
They
supportive.
trust you.
Yeah. They trust
So
me.
just give the website one more time for everybody to find out about your ministry.
Yeah. So our art business is growcreativesolutions.com. And we've got some prints as well and some things that Andrew does. You can get a commission there, a dog portrait if you want. And our book.
All right. So we'll put that information out there for you. Thanks, guys, for taking time to be with us.
Very
It was
kind.
a pleasure being
Yeah,
here.
thank you, Andrew. Pleasure to meet you in person.
Yes, sir.
And thanks to all of you that joined us on this edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast.